Friends, we come to the pools of Bethesda. The pools of Bethesda is not how we call it, the modern pronunciation of today. We call it the pools of Bethesda. Bethesda means the house of grace or the house of mercy. And when we call or when we remember the story in the Bible, we go back to the book of John chapter 5. He talks about a pool in here, and those who will come to the pool and they will be healed once they get the chance to be the first to jump into the water, because the water was moved and stirred with the power. The thing is that when you come to imagine the story that happens here, we are talking about not only that man that the Bible refers to, as he was lame for 38 years, sick. You can imagine that there were more people sick in here. There were the blind, the paralytic, there were the sick, and all of those who were coming here to get their chance to jump into the water. We don't know how the water was stirred, by a power, by an agent, but there was that man who was sick for 38 years. And then Jesus simply passes from here, stand up, take your mat, and go, and move. That's interesting. It's just beautiful.
By this gate here then?
Just right by this pool, the pool of Bethesda, which is right behind me. The pool of Bethesda, if you are sick for 38 years, and someone after 38 years come to you and tell you, do you want to be healed? Imagine what kind of answer you want to give to that man. 38 years, not 38 days or 38 weeks. The man even got used for such a life, to live like this and sick for 38 years. Simply stand up, take your mat and move and go. Now that miracle took place on a Sabbath. And the people saw that man. How could you do such a thing, to stand up and walk carrying your mat? Well, the man who healed me told me I could stand up, take my mat and go. None of the Jewish commandments says you are not to carry your mat and walk on a Sabbath. None of the 613 commandments, none of them. 200 years later, the book of the Mishnah was written, compiling the Old Testament, all the Jewish law. 200 years AD, 200 years after the time of Jesus, when that book was written, guess what? A commandment was written there, do not stand up, take your mat and walk. But when they asked Jesus, how could you do such a thing on a Sabbath when my father is still working? So I continue. Okay, that man is in trouble. He's not only breaking the law, performing a miracle on the Sabbath, he is also making himself equal to God. How could you do such a thing? When we come here to excavate, we started excavating relating to the story in the Bible. The book of John, many scholars believe that it is a book of symbolizers. For instance, when they call the book of John, chapter 5, they thought at that time, because talking about the 5 porticos in here in the pool, maybe for the 5 books of Moses. But when they started the excavations, they really find 5 porticos to that pool. We are talking about a pool that was first built in the 8th century BC, and then in the 3rd century another pool was added to it. So the pool of Bethesda is not one pool, but we are talking about 2 pools. Those 2 pools, there was a dam that divides between both pools, one in the north and one in the south. One of the pools, which is in the north, can be seen from here, bless you. And look how deep is this pool. Friends, we are talking about the original layers. So when we're talking about the pool here, we look and we see how deep is the pool at this corner. And then, thinking about Jerusalem at the time of Jesus, Jerusalem would be down there at the time of Jesus and not where we are standing now. The reason is that if we look at Jerusalem, and especially the place where we are digging, making the archaeology, this area was excavated by a woman. Her name was Kathleen Kenyon in the 1950s. In the 1950s, when she started digging in this place, she looked at Jerusalem like a birthday cake. And then cutting into that birthday cake, you will see the layers of that cake, what it's actually stuffed with. So here, you dig down, you cut a piece, and then you see the layers of Jerusalem from 2000 and even until today. So where we are walking is not the layer of Jerusalem 2000 years ago. It is way down there, especially at that corner. we have here some of the arches that supported a church. That church was built first in the 5th century to commemorate to the story that happens when Jesus healed that man. During the excavations, we also found remains of a pagan temple that was built, or a pagan bathhouse that was built by Hadrian. You know who's Hadrian? In the year 135, Hadrian changed the city into a pagan city, calling it Alia Capitolina. In here, they found a pagan bathhouse dedicated to god Aesculapius Serapius. But they continued the excavations, and they needed to reach to something very important. During the excavations of Qumran, when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found one of the scrolls, and it is known as the Copper Scroll. In the Copper Scroll, they discovered a mentioning of the pools of Bethesda. Now, the Copper Scroll was a map for Jewish treasure. That was what the Copper Scroll was, a map for Jewish treasure. Now, what is the Jewish treasure that it is found here, mentioning the pool of Bethesda in the Copper Scroll? They started digging, flipping all this place upside down. They found nothing. They reached all to an agreement that that treasure that we are talking about here is